Hello, amazing humans, community members, and residents. Welcome to Saturday's AAPI community event. Today, we are going to be learning how to cook bulgogi. That is what our session is about. And so we're definitely here to have a little bit of fun. I'm not going to be talking a lot. We're just going to get right into it. So to start off, we're just going to show the launch video from our county executive, which is essentially going to give a little bit more context about why this event is super important and how it creates to the larger context of the series. And so the intention behind this is to make sure that we're honoring our AAPI community members and residents, brothers and sisters, and not doing it in a way that's looking at it as a monolith. I think oftentimes we don't really recognize that there are a lot of different cultures, ethnicities, backgrounds that exist within the diaspora of the AAPI community, Asian American Pacific Islander community. And within Howard County, it's important for us to make sure that we're honoring that because we are uniquely diverse. And so in that vein, we want to make sure that we're offering different ways in which we can honor each other, different aspects of our culture. And so, as I said, we're going to be watching a video really quickly of the county executive kind of giving us a welcome. And then after that, we're going to get right into it. All right. And again, that was our county executive essentially just giving us a welcome, letting us understand why this is really important, why we should be leaning into this. And so I want to thank you all for being present. And with no further ado, I'm not going to be talking much. We're going to get right into why you all are here. Please enjoy.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Reinhardt, and I'm going to be doing a cooking demonstration on the Korean dish bulgogi. Now, bulgogi is a classic Korean dish made of thinly sliced marinated meat. Quite literally, bulgogi translates to fire meat. So it's gone through its changes over the past hundreds of years, but bulgogi originates back to 37 BC, where meat was skewered in a kebab-like manner and cooked over a fire. In the early 20th century, the dish evolved into a thinly sliced, marinated, and charbroiled meat dish that was almost exclusively eaten by royalty. Because meat was so hard to come by, it was very expensive and very rare back then. It was only eaten by royalty. But now, how bulgogi came to be what we know it to be now is slightly complicated, but during the 1920s, beef became more commercialized and widespread, which really popularized bulgogi to be one of the top 3 dishes that's representative of the Korean culture. The other 2 being kimchi and bibimbap. So today I'm going to go through a tutorial on how to make bulgogi. The first thing I'm going to do is walk you through the different ingredients that we need in order to make our bulgogi. The first ingredient is frozen beef, thinly sliced. It's a ribeye, and they've pre-sliced it. You can find it in the freezer section in the Asian grocery store. Some of the spices and sauces that we need are sesame oil, sugar, black pepper, soy sauce, and rice wine. Some of the vegetables that we will need for today are scallions. I just have one bunch. An onion, maybe a medium-sized onion. I'm using a sweet onion here, but you can also feel free to substitute it with a Spanish onion or a yellow onion. A small Asian pear that I have peeled the skin off of. A small piece of ginger that I've peeled the skin off. And 4 cloves of garlic. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open the package of meat, and I'm going to take this meat and cut it into slightly smaller pieces. Right now, these pieces are slightly big. You don't need to worry about cutting them too small because the meat will shrink as you cook it, and it will break apart a little bit just because of the marbling. So I usually like to cut it into halves. Maybe slightly smaller if you want, or if they're like especially big pieces. This meat is still slightly frozen, but it's easy to cut and it's easy to work with, which I like. So this one I'm going to just slice into thirds, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm working with about 1 3/4 pounds of meat here. This was a little bit big. I'm going to chop this one more time. And that's it for the meat. Next, I'm going to show you how to get the marinade ingredients together. Okay, so now I'm going to get into making, putting the marinade together. So the first thing I'm going to do is I have a small blender. You can use a blender or a food processor, and I'm going to add a couple of ingredients to this food processor. So I have my onion. I'm going to take this onion and probably use maybe about 1/4 of that onion. I'm going to just stick that in here. And then I'm going to take my pear and just slice that off. And I'm going to add my 4 cloves of garlic and my piece of ginger. So this piece of ginger is a little bit big, so I cut it. This is probably about a 1/2 inch piece of ginger. I'm going to add that, and then I'm going to take my rice wine or cooking wine, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons. Close this up. All right, all those ingredients are blended together, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dump this right into the meat. The pear, the Asian pear, acts as a tenderizer for the meat. So you can substitute Asian pear with another fruit like an apple. I've seen people use apple. I've seen people use kiwi. The thing that you want to be careful about if you decide to change the fruit that you put in is if you use something like kiwi, the enzymes in that kiwi will break down the meat much faster than what Asian pear will do. So if you do use kiwi, you want to be very careful and not marinate it for more than, I would say, 2 to 4 hours, because after that, it will really break down the meat and it'll become mushy. So I use Asian pear in here, but again, you can substitute that Asian pear for apple or kiwi. I think I've even seen people use pineapple. So I'm taking that, what I just blended up, and putting it into the meat. I'm just coating it in the meat. And I'm just going to let it sit for a few minutes while I prepare the other vegetables to put in here. And then we'll mix it all together and marinate it. So everything's pretty well coated. You'll see that I'm wearing a pair of plastic gloves. These are great to have around when you're handling meat, and like sometimes when we're handling like red pepper flakes and things that can stain. Okay, now I'm just gonna take the rest of that onion and just slice it into thin slices, relatively thin. It doesn't have to be exact or anything. You don't want to make it too thick. And you're going to just put this onion straight into the meat. Next, I'm going to be chopping my scallions. So I bought a whole bunch of scallions. So one bunch of scallions from the Asian grocery store. They're usually sold in bunches like this, and they're wrapped with a rubber band. So I bought one bunch. I'm just going to take one and put it into a separate container, and we're going to use that as a garnish after we're done cooking the meat. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to chop off the top little bit. It's where the root is, and then I'm just going to chop off the bottom little bit. And then I'm going to cut it in half and then chop it pretty small. You can use the white and green parts of the scallion for this. So it's pretty small. So this is the scallion that I chopped up really small. It's about this big, and we're just going to use that as garnish later. I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to chop up the rest of the scallion. So I have this much, and again, I'm going to chop off the top little bit, and then I'm going to chop off the bottom little bit. And then put that into my garbage bowl. And then, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to chop it in half, and then make about 1-inch pieces. I'll have a little bit here. And this is going to go directly into the bulgogi. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be kind of rough, but about this big. Right in here. Okay, next I'm going to add in the rest of my marinade ingredients. So my first biggest thing is going to be my soy sauce. So I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of soy sauce. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of sugar. So generally the rule I like to follow is 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 parts soy sauce to 1 part sugar. So if you're increasing or decreasing this recipe for whatever reason, that's the ratio that you can follow. So I'm gonna do 3 tablespoons of white sugar. I use white sugar. You can definitely substitute brown sugar also. That works really well. And then I'm going to add about maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon of black pepper. It's not, you know, exact, or it doesn't have to be exact, just eyeball it. And that's it. And then what I'm going to do is put my plastic glove back on, and I'm going to mix this around. Okay, so the marinade is all mixed in there. Once everything gets coated and all the vegetables are nicely kind of mixed in, that is when I add the sesame oil. So the reason I add the sesame oil in later after I mix all the ingredients in, instead of mixing it in with the original marinade, is that if you add the sesame oil in first with everything else, it actually keeps the rest of the marinade ingredients from being absorbed by the meat. So I wait to actually coat everything in the original marinade first, and then I add sesame oil. So what I'm going to do is, now that everything's coated, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of sesame oil. So sesame oil is a little goes a long way. So I use more of the other ingredients, but only 1 tablespoon of the sesame oil. So I get that mixed in. I love it when the sesame oil goes in because it smells so good. The sesame oil, it's like very nutty. I love the smell of sesame oil. Okay, so everything's mixed in, and I'm going to let this marinate. I would recommend at least 3 to 4 hours of marinating time. That will give the pear a chance to work and tenderize the meat and get the marinade all in absorbed into the meat. You can also marinate it up to overnight, so up to 24 hours. It would be good in the fridge. If you are not going to use it within 24 hours, I would highly recommend that you freeze this. And this freezes really, really well, which is another reason I really like this recipe, because you can, even if whether you're cooking for 1 or 10, you can make a batch and I like to portion out little bits and freeze it and just thaw it and make it when I want. So I'm going to put this in the fridge for a few hours. Okay, now my meat has been marinating for a few hours. What I'm going to do now is get a pan really hot, and I'm actually going to taste the meat to make sure that the seasonings are right. Because you don't want to make an entire batch of bulgogi and not have it be seasoned right. So I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil into a hot pan. And I'm only going to try a little bit, so I only put a little bit of oil in. And I'll just take a little bit of the meat, just a little bite size, and just put it into the hot pan and cook it. And beef cooks really fast, so I'll just wait for that to cook. And if the marinade is not right, what you can do is either add more soy sauce or more sugar. So those are basically the 2 only things that it might potentially need, either more soy sauce or more sugar. But feel free to kind of season it how you like. If you like it a little bit sweeter, you can add more sugar. If you like it a little bit more on the salty side or less sweet, then you can add more soy sauce. And see how fast that cooks? It only takes a minute or 2, especially when you're not cooking very much of it. Okay, once it's mostly cooked, I just turn the pan off and I will try a piece. It's probably really hot, so I should really give it a chance to cool down for a second, but I will try it anyway. So what I think this needs is maybe just a little bit of soy sauce. So I'm going to add just a a little bit. And I probably just added like a tablespoon or two. And then I'm just going to get a plastic glove and mix it all together. And I am not, at this point you can taste it again, but I am not going to taste it again. But feel free to taste and adjust as many times as you need before you cook it. Now I'm going to get into actually making the bulgogi. What I'm going to show you next is a completely optional step. I do it sometimes because to add a little bit of color to the dish or add some more vegetables to the dish, but again, this is completely optional, and there's a lot of ways you can kind of adjust this to suit your taste. So what I'm going to do is I got some Shanghai tips and some oyster mushrooms from the Asian grocery store today. So I'm gonna add those in. And I'm gonna add in some sliced garlic that I sliced thinly. I've seen people add in other things like other kinds of mushrooms like shiitake or thinly sliced carrots. I've seen people add in for some great color. So what I'm going to do is I put a little bit of oil into a pan and got the pan really hot. And I'm going to saute these vegetables on their own. So I'm gonna just add this in. I'm gonna add everything in. I'm gonna put a little bit of salt on it, just a little bit, to give it a little bit of flavor. And I'm just gonna cook it really quickly. And these vegetables cook really fast. So I'm gonna move here really quickly. So this has been sauteing for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, and they've got a little bit of nice color on them, and it's not like completely cooked. It's mostly cooked, but the greens probably still have a little bit of crunch left. And what I'm going to do is take this back out onto a plate. And just have that sitting there while I cook the beef. So I'm going to put the pan right back onto the stove and add my meat. So I'm going to put a little bit more olive oil in the pan. I'm going to take my plastic glove, a disposable glove, and I'll just put some of the meat right into the pan. I just spread it out a little bit into the pan, and then I leave it undisturbed for a minute or two to give the meat a chance to cook a little bit. So I'm going to just, once a minute has passed, I'm just going to give it a nice turn. Now, if you go to a Korean barbecue place or even at home, you can actually make this at your table on a grill. They actually sell gas stoves that you can actually you can put on the table, and you can put a pan and cook all this table side. It doesn't have to be done at the stove, but I'm going to just continue flipping this and cooking it until it's about 90% done. And then I'm going to add my vegetables back in. This beef has been cooking in the pan, and it's about 90% cooked. You can still see a little bit of pink, but it does cook fairly quickly. It's probably been cooking for about 5 or 6 minutes. And then what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to add these vegetables back in. And again, the whole vegetable part is totally optional. And you can make delicious bulgogi without these vegetables. But so I'm going to give this one more minute. And then once everything is kind of like all mixed in together, I'm going to turn off the heat and then put it onto a plate. And then I'm going to, the scallions that we cut up earlier, that we chopped up, I'm gonna just put that on top as garnish, like this. And I'm going to add some toasted sesame seeds on top. So you can see that adds a little bit of texture and a little bit of color. And now we're ready to start eating. Now we're ready to start eating. So this is kind of what a traditional Korean spread would look like. So we have the bulgogi here, we have some lettuce wraps, we have some mild peppers, cucumbers, and then some side dishes, banchan. There's usually some sort of soup that is at every Korean table. And this is radish kimchi, there's rice, and this is 쌈장, which is what we put into our lettuce wraps. So I'll just kind of show you how to make a lettuce wrap. I'll take a piece of lettuce. So lettuce comes in all different sizes. Sometimes they're big and sometimes they're small. What I do is I don't feel the need to use an entire piece of lettuce for every piece of meat you eat. Generally, you want to only make a wrap big enough that you can fit into one mouthful. So, you know, if you have to cut the lettuce, that's totally fine. And what you do is you take some of the meat like this, and you take a little bit of samjang like this. A little goes a long way. And then some people like to add rice into their wraps. So you can definitely do that. And then what you do is you just wrap it and you eat it. So some of you guys might be wondering where I got all these ingredients to make this food. So if you stay tuned, I am going to take you to the grocery store. I went to the grocery store and filmed all the different ingredients that I bought, where to find them, and I also take you through some pantry staples for all Korean kitchens, stuff that we always like to have on hand. So that is coming up next. All right, I am at H Mart in Ellicott City now. I'm going to be shopping for some of the ingredients that I need for I am at H Mart in Ellicott City now. I'm going to be shopping for some of the ingredients that I need for my bulgogi, and I will also show you some of the pantry staples in Korean cooking. The first thing I'm going to grab is some Asian pear. So it's right near the front in the produce section. Right now the Asian pears are not super big because usually the pears are in season in the fall and winter. But they always seem to have some sort of Asian pears around, so I'm just going to grab one. They're pretty small right now. You just want to make sure that it's firm and not squishy at all. The next thing I'm going to grab is some lettuce. So when you come, you're going to find that there are a couple of different types of lettuce. You'll typically see green leaf, you'll see red leaf, you'll see romaine. Usually I'll just get whatever looks freshest that day. Usually either green leaf or red leaf. Today I think I'm going to choose green leaf. I'm just going to grab one bunch, and this is what we're going to wrap the bulgogi in later when we eat. Alright, if you like mushrooms, this is the place for your mushrooms. They have like almost every kind of mushroom that you can imagine. They have just regular white button mushrooms. There are baby portobello mushrooms. We have oyster mushrooms, portobello mushrooms, shiitake mushrooms, and like all kinds of stuff in between. So today, what I'm going to grab is, I'm just going to grab one kind of mushroom to use in my bulgogi. I'll show you how I use that mushroom. It's a completely optional ingredient, but I like to use it sometimes, so I will show you how I use that. I'm just going to grab some oyster mushrooms. The next thing I'm going to grab are some scallions. Scallions are used in a lot of Korean cooking and Asian cooking in general. I'm just going to grab one bunch of scallions for my bulgogi recipe. And while I'm here, I'm just going to grab one of the pantry staples in a Korean kitchen. It's garlic. So you can see that they have like pre-peeled containers of garlic. This is a 1 pound container. And they also have these giant containers, which kind of tells you how much garlic Asian people do like to use in their cooking. My mom will buy like one of these containers and use it all up within a week or two. So there's a lot of garlic that goes into Korean cooking. That's why it's one of the staples. Next, I'm going to grab another ingredient that's going to go into my bulgogi. It's a completely, again, optional ingredient, but it can add a little bit of color into the bulgogi. So I'm going to grab a bag of Shanghai tips and use this in my bulgogi recipe, and I'll show you how to use it. Another staple in Korean households is banchan, side dishes. So if you ever go to a Korean restaurant, you see all the different little dishes that come out with your meal. And they sell lots of different kinds here. They even have soups that are pre-made. So you can just take it home and heat it with some rice. So they have all different kinds of side dishes, and they even have like pre-made bibimbap vegetables where you can just add rice and mix everything together and you can enjoy bibimbap. So they have all these different kinds of vegetables. They have tofu, marinated tofu. They have marinated sesame leaves. They have eggs, all kinds of stuff. And then over here is another Korean staple. It's kimchi, and they have all different kinds of kimchi. They have stuffed cucumber kimchi. They have regular cabbage kimchi, and they have in all different sizes. They have radish kimchi, and things like that. So you can see all the different kinds they have here. Okay, on our way to the sauce section, I'm just going to pass through this seafood section. If you're looking for seafood, they have all kinds of seafood, pretty much maybe any kind of seafood that you're looking for. They have fresh fish, many different kinds, and they can slice fish up for you. They can give you whole fish, and so here is the seafood section. All right, so I would say most of the staples that we need in a Korean pantry are in aisles 10 and 11. So we're going to start in aisle 11, where I'm going to show you the different kinds of sauces and spices that we need in a Korean pantry. The first thing that we're going to come across is sesame oil. So it says premium sesame oil. I just usually keep a bottle of this in my pantry at all times. You don't need a huge bottle of it because a little does really go a long way. So I usually get one of those. All right, right next to the sesame oil are sesame seeds. There's lots of different kinds. It's not a huge deal which kind you get. But we use this a lot in Korean cooking. It adds some texture, it adds a little bit of a nutty flavor, it adds a little bit of crunch, so you'll see that we use a lot of sesame seeds in Korean cooking. Next is the rice wine. So this is cooking wine that we use in Korean cooking a lot. This is also a staple. And you can see it comes in different sizes. I usually just get the smallest one. Next, I am going to show you the different kinds of soybean paste and red pepper paste that you can find in a Korean grocery store. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the ssamjang. So if you go to a Korean barbecue restaurant, they will serve this to you in a little dish, and you can put this on your meat and wrap it in lettuce and eat it. So this is like kind of a combination of soybean paste and red pepper paste and garlic and a few other spices, and it's ready made for you. Now some Korean people will definitely make this at home from scratch on their own, but it does come ready made in a tub, which is what I usually use at home. Next is doenjang, which is soybean paste. This is, I would say, also a staple in a Korean household. We use it to flavor lots of different foods. I always like to have some of this in my refrigerator. So right now it's not refrigerated, but once you open it, it should be refrigerated. So I usually have this in there. And then we have red pepper paste. Look at all these different kinds of red pepper paste. I will say that it's not a huge deal what kind of red pepper paste you get, but it's right here next to the soybean paste. There's many different varieties. You can just kind of choose one and see what you think, and then come back and get a different one if you don't like it. And then finally, on this side, we have all these different kinds of soy sauce. Now, there are a couple different kinds of soy sauce. So I do want to highlight a few. So what you are looking for when you buy soy sauce is just regular soy sauce, okay? So if you look here, it says premium soy sauce, and then it says soy sauce, okay? So these are the two main kinds of soy sauce that we use in regular cooking. So this is just regular soy sauce. The reason this is premium soy sauce is because it's been naturally brewed. It goes through a natural fermentation process for about 6 months. And it's a little bit more expensive than some other soy sauces, but they do say that it gives a better flavor. Now, we use this for all kinds of Korean cooking. We use it in cooking. We use it as a dipping sauce. We use it to flavor foods. So this is definitely the kind of Korean sauce or soy sauce that you want. What you don't want, and you want to be careful of, is that you do not get soup soy sauce. So this is kuk soy sauce, which means soup. So this is a special kind of soy sauce that we use in soup. The color is actually a little bit lighter and is a lot saltier than regular soy sauce. So you don't want to use that in your regular cooking. We usually just use it in soups and broths. Because of the lighter color, it won't change the color of the broth too much by using it, which is why they have this kind of soy sauce. But for our just regular cooking purposes, I just always buy regular soy sauce. The last thing I'm going to show you in the sauce and spice aisle is our red pepper flakes. So again, you can see that there are lots of different kinds of red pepper flakes. Red pepper flakes are different from the red pepper paste I showed you earlier. Red pepper paste is slightly spicy and very salty. You use it for spice and to add salt into your dish. What red pepper flakes will do will add some spice, but there's no salt in it. So when you're looking for color or just spice, a lot of dishes will call for maybe just red pepper flakes or a combination of red pepper paste and red pepper flakes. So you're not using too much of it. You're probably thinking, oh my goodness, like there's these giant bags of red pepper flakes. And the reason for that is because a lot of Korean people use red pepper flakes a lot when they're making kimchi in the fall. So people who do make it at home, my mom will go through bags and bags of these in the fall when she's making kimchi. So that's why they have such big bags. But for us, like what I like to keep in my house is just a small container like this. The final thing I will show you on this shopping trip is the meat section. So they have a variety of frozen meats as well as fresh meat. So you can find all kinds of meat here. They have thinly sliced pork. They also have pork belly, which you will see a lot when you go to a Korean barbecue. They have like thinly sliced pork belly. They have slightly thicker sliced pork belly. It really all depends on what you want. They have thinly sliced brisket. And then they also have frozen bulgogi, which is thinly sliced ribeye. So if you look, they're setting it out right now. So it says frozen beef, and it's thinly sliced, and it's ribeye. So they sell this frozen, like this. And they also come in giant family packs, just in case you're making bulgogi for a big crowd. If you've never shopped at an Asian grocery store before, I hope that I have encouraged some of you to try it out. Even if it's just for the produce alone, they have such a vast variety of different kinds of produce. You'll really be amazed at what they have to offer. So I hope that you will all come and check it out.
All right, that was beyond amazing. Thank you, Elizabeth. If you'd like to come on and show your face one more time if you're there, just so that we can actually give you a thanks. That was an amazing video, really well put together. Is there anything you'd like to say before we end?
No, I hope that everybody found the video helpful, especially the part about going to the Korean grocery store. I know it can be very overwhelming, but I hope that you all enjoyed it and you take a stab at making some Korean food.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Thank you so much. To everyone who has joined us, thank you. Have an amazing day, and we look forward to connecting with you outside, which hopefully we can be outside soon. Have an amazing day.